Hi, welcome back to Broken Silence. I'm Sanyya Gardez. Interfaith and intercultural marriages, can they work? We know they're on the rise, but are those marriages less successful than arranged ones? Joining me on the panel is Mr. Gulbag Singh. Gul, tell us about, we've been discussing interfaith and intercultural marriages, and we know that they are on the rise. The longer that South Asians spend in any country, the longer we're here in England, the longer we're in America or Canada, interfaith marriages, intercultural marriages are on the rise. Our parents, however, who migrated here, 20, 30, 40 years ago, are trying to hold on to a culture that they remember from back home, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, that no longer exists. People in India and Pakistan have progressed, have moved forward, and they're marrying outside their own caste, they're marrying outside their own religion, but we're holding on to a culture that doesn't even exist back home anymore.
Yes, certainly. First of all, just to sort of say that migration that happened 70 years ago, or even before that, or in the latter sort of decades in the 60s, you're quite right. Yes, that was that sort of a culture shock for them, first coming into this country or moving to America as well. From that, their children or their grandchildren are a part of this country now. So they are not something that can go back to somewhere else. As far as they're concerned, they are living in a country where they were born in.
But do you agree that the people that migrated here, half a century ago, have this idea of the culture that they left behind, which no longer exists?
Yeah, there's an element of that culture that I understand what you're saying, because if we were to say that we're Asian British or Sikh British or Pakistani British or Muslim British, and we were to say that we were going to completely give up our culture or our identity, we wouldn't have an identity, because part of our identity
But aren't we British Asian and not British Pakistani, not British Indian, not British Bangladeshi, just
whatever
British
the
Asian?
term you choose to call it by, yes, you're quite right, yeah, we're British Asian or whatever. However, what I'm trying to get to is that there should be a fine balance of what our culture is about. Not to say that we completely disown our parental culture that they brought over or what we've inherited from them. That is partly the culture that we were brought up with, and that is the food that we eat, the way we communicate with other people, the respect element that we have for elders or people in our family. Not to say that Westerns don't, of course they do. And then there's a religious factor within that as well. So there's positive attributes that we need to take out of that and keep them. Certainly I agree that there is certain dogmatic rules that they have hung on to, that no, we mustn't do anything other than this. We mustn't step over the line. And quite rightly, like you have said, that in India or in Pakistan, people have progressed more because they feel that there is an evolution going on between generations, and therefore we need to look at it from a more of a global community as well.
My other point is that, in the UK we have British Asians who have this commonality of all being born and raised in England, are all Asian, and the Asian culture is what binds us. It's not so much our individual faith groups, but the culture that we belong in and the shared history of being British Asian. Do you think that somebody who shares that, being British and Asian, but is of two different faiths, so shared culture but two different faiths, do they have a chance of making that relationship work, or do you think pressure from the wider community is enough to break that relationship up?
Well, that's two questions, and certainly for the first one...
It's two questions rolled up into one.
rolled into one. Certainly, yes. It could work depending on what their religious orientation is. If it's very sort of to a point, if you've got a scale of 10 to 1, if it is skeeping up to a point where it's 7, 8, and 9, then there's a good possibility they're going to differ in their views.
But see, I think that the reason that, a lot of parents are hesitant to accept their child marrying out of faith or out of culture is not so much that it goes against what they believe. I think it's the pressure that they get from the wider community. It's what is, he going to say or she going to say, what are people going to say at the Goodwater or at the mosque. It's more concern of what everybody else is going to say. And if they ask everybody else, their kids are doing it too.
But not only that, Sanyya, when you've said that we live in a community now that we are British Asians, then there's going to be a good possibility then two people who are falling into a relationship, who are very Westernly orientated, they're going to have their cultural values and religious values are going to be put on the back burner. It isn't going to be the utmost thing that they'll be looking at. and certainly when they are going out at the dinner table, the discussion most likely isn't going to happen that, well, I'm a devout Sikh, you're a devout Muslim, so how are we going to work that out?
See, now that
However,
might lead people that are watching us that are more religious to be scared and think, well, are we just losing our religion?
no, of course they're not. They're not losing that. But then, again, I would have to partly agree with Dr. Naseem. If they are orientated that way, their subconscious or the way they are thinking or their frame of mind, their circles, social circles, will be around them kind of groups of people that will be, again, religiously orientated. Let me give you an example. If we've got Sikhism or Islamism now, which is world religions which are growing and they are quite established. You've got younger generations who are following them on a very positive light, being very equal, trying to bring out the utmost best out of their religion and their faith. However, the circles that they move in will most likely be in either an Islamic social gathering or a Sikh social gathering. So therefore, if that person from that background meets someone from, and this is again, you see, where we sort of confuse things, if it's a Sikh from a different caste.
Well, I was going to just say, you know, we don't even have the time to even touch upon that. I mean, okay, fine, interfaith is one thing, but we are still having issues of marrying intercaste. And, you know, even if you're Muslim and you're Mirpuri and you're marrying somebody that's Urdu speaking, I mean, we still haven't even really gotten over those issues. So I guess, you know, interfaith and interculture is something that will be more accepting of possibly 50 years down the line.
Well, it's hard to say. It's like you said, it's debatable. And if I can just come back to the booklet that you got in front of you, when I was doing my research and I actually written it, it's called Uprooting. Again, it was very, very hard to understand that even younger generations still adhere by that kind of caste element within their own sort of religious backgrounds, that they will still make a point of asking someone, either they're Sikh or Muslim, so which caste do you actually belong to? Irrespective of what profession they hold or what level what standards they hold within the community, that isn't something that is very important to them. What is more important is what caste they belong to.
That's right.
And it is unfortunate, and it's a very sort of sad aspect as far as certain religions are concerned, because if you look at the religious aspects of it, they promote equality.
That's right. Well, you know, it's promoting one thing and then actually living it is a whole different thing. Interfaith and intercultural marriages. We know they're on the rise, but when you're getting married, should you let your heart decide or should you let your head take the lead? You've been watching Broken Silence. I'm Sanyya Gardez. I'll be back next week, same time, same place.